right, all my Gator friends, let's chop it up. Talk about them Florida Gators again. Want to get after it and talk about some transfer impact players for this team and just my thoughts on some of these guys and who's going to make an impact. Kind of my thoughts on each one. I haven't really done anything, just focused on the transfer portal players that we landed and how they'll affect the outcome of the season and the defense and offense. Um, Definitely think that we got some substantially, good players and some that are just average, so 50-50 kind of toss up guys. Guys that can bring some good depth, but not much more than that. So let's just get into it. I'm going to start with the most impactful player we landed out of the transfer portal, in my opinion, Cameron Jackson out of Memphis. Their defense ranked 60th in the country last year, so middle of the road. Played on a decent defense, played some pretty good competition. Team finished 7-6. But this guy's got high level draft round grades. Mid to high round draft pick, big guy, reshaped his body. I mean, he's ready to go 6'6". His weight on the depth chart looks good. I mean, he's just going to be a beast this year. He's an SEC type defensive lineman. I think he's the biggest star and most impactful player since maybe Taven Bryan, some of those guys on the defensive line. Kid's just going to be really good. He's going to be a monster, getting in the backfield, putting pressure up the middle. Played 13 games at Memphis, 19 solo tackles, 22 assists, a lot of tackles for an interior guy. That's really impressive. 41 total tackles on the season, 2.5 tackles for a loss, which again, he wasn't coming off the edge a lot. So 2.5 tackles for a loss and a sack, a pass breakup. He's got long arms, big wingspan, can get his arms up and impede the view of the quarterback. With more talent around him, he's only going to be even better at Florida. So yeah, Cameron Jackson's definitely the best of the mix at the transfer bunch. My next guy is going to be Nunnery, the linebacker that we got. 84th defense at Houston. So not a great defense that he played on. Not the worst. Not the worst, but 8-5 average Houston team, not in a real strong conference. Um, but Houston had a good scheme, very similar. Scheme to what we run. He was top 5 on that defense in production. He was going to be one of their biggest impact players coming back this year, and we were able to steal him. Played in 11 games, 28 solo tackles, 18 assisted, 46 total tackles. So pretty good numbers for a linebacker. Kind of what you want to see as far as numbers go. 3 tackles for a loss. The guy's very quick, had a sack, two pass breakups. He can play in coverage, and he can really get after the quarterback. I think this guy's going to be a very good rotational player at linebacker for the Gators and get a lot of snaps. Probably split time with Tehada Mitchell, I believe his name is. I think these two are totally different players and will split time equally on this team. Another guy, R.J. Moten. All right, so from Michigan, big time top 6 defense, playoff team, 31 total tackles, 20 solo, 11 assists, seniority type guy, one pass PBU, 1 interception, 1.5 sacks. And then 2021, he had 28 solo, 7 assists, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups. So not super great in coverage, but a really solid tackler, very good depth guy, likely a starter at Florida. We're very weak at safety. So I think he'll be a decent guy for us, but I think safety is going to be one of our weaker spots on the team. Probably going to struggle a little bit at safety, but I do think he gets a lot of snaps this year for Florida and definitely plays. We really need Kamari Wilson to be the guy and step into that role and be the leader on this defense. He's going to have to take a massive jump. He looked super lost last year. On film, he looks lost. But he's a freshman, so that's to be expected. He could come back this year and look like a stud. He's got the talent. He struggled in coverage. He's very good in the box, up to closer to the line of scrimmage. But even that was his MO coming out of high school. Kamari really did struggle with that some. The things he was better at in high school didn't translate necessarily last year. But yeah, I definitely think RJ Moat will play some snaps, but not be necessarily getting the most snaps at safety. All right, sorry guys, had to pause up there for a second, but yeah, so RJ Moten, like I said, I think he's a solid depth guy. Not necessarily going to wow us out there on the field. Lost his job at Michigan, got passed up on the depth chart. A lot of these guys did, in certain places like Keontae Goodwin necessarily wasn't a starter. George lost his spot, so definitely a few guys that we're going to have to definitely coach up and develop a little bit more than where they were at their last spot. We'll see what happens. So another guy I know y'all all know about, Graham Mertz, 19 touchdowns. I'm just spitballing here on this. I don't even have this written down, but I think 13 interceptions. Play action quarterback. Kind of was in an offense similar to what McElwain ran. Kind of similar to what we do here. Just hopefully we mix it up and we're not so predictable. But terrible stats, couple thousand yards passing, zero running threat at Wisconsin, had minus negative rushing yards every season, tons of sacks. You got to think he's not going to give us that running threat at the quarterback option, so they're going to be keen on pinning their ears back with a new offensive line that's got to gel quickly. With some inexperience and a lot of new faces, guys that don't have experience on the offensive line or have very little. With Keontae Goodwin, you got George, who again lost his spot. I think Goodwin and George are going to be 50-50. I'd like to see both of them on the offensive line, one at guard, one at tackle. But Richie Leonard is a day one starter, according to what people are saying. And that scares me a little bit because we really need Goodwin to be the starter at tackle, out there at right tackle. And I'm sure, George or Goodwin, one of them is going to be the guy. But the fact that one of them hadn't just taken the job, outright so far worries me a little bit. You know, Again, like I said, Goodwin doesn't have a ton of experience, but a solid five-star guy. I believe in the future for him more than I do for George, but George has more experience. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But offensive line's not going to be, it's going to take a little while for them to click and gel. That's why I said that Utah game is going to be really tricky. We don't travel well. Florida never has. All the way across the country, new line, new coordinator on defense. It's going to be a little. That game, I wouldn't get too down on us if we lose that game. As long as it's not a blowout, we might have to bite that one and just accept that one's going to be tougher than we think. I do think we're going to play them very close. I think we actually have a very good shot at winning that game, like a 17-14 score or something like that. We're not going to put up a lot of points on them, and they're not going to put up a lot of points on us. That's how good I think the defense will actually be, because Cam Rising is a legit quarterback. Dude is very good. You got to think we're going to be dealing with the same thing they dealt with coming all the way to Florida to play us last year, first game. They finished, with a decent record and had a decent season. Lost one of their best tight ends, so tough year for them. But that's not going to be a give-me game at all. It's going to be a very tough one. But yeah, that's the offensive line. How I think that's going to shake out with George and Goodwin. Richie Leonard over there, so I think it's going to be a good offensive line. I just don't think it's going to be quite as good as last year, and that's another issue for Mertz. They're going to have to be very, very good for him to do well, because he does not do well under pressure at all. He gets antsy back there. You could even see it in the spring game some. Just pulls the trigger a little too fast at times, throws the ball away, Hopefully he's mature enough now to know when to throw the ball away. But Mertz is not. I think we're very hopeful and wishful thinking. I'm very down and low on Mertz. I don't think he's going to be very, very good at Florida. This is going to be a rough year because of Mertz, in my opinion, more so than the offensive line, the running game, or the defense. I think he's going to be what holds us back a lot. Would love to see a Max Brown type guy, come on second half of the year if he really struggles and develop. He's got a long way to go. But we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, with these guys working. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the rest of these transfers. I got a couple written down. These are more of the probably lower impact guys. I'm not going to get into too much detail on these guys. Lindell Hudson, offensive tackle, depth piece for me. Probably number 2 at tackle on left or right. I mean, we get in a pinch, he could start at left tackle for us. And who knows, by fall he might get in the season and be one of our better left tackles. So Cam Carroll, actually, I think he makes more of an impact than what I have on this list, but I think he's a goal line type guy. 4 or 5 carries a game. I think he will get that. I think he will demand that, and his talent is better than what people think. He was a freak in that spring game. I'm actually probably most excited about him on offense of the newcomers and guys that we haven't seen yet. Um, I think he's going to actually steal some carries from our two number one and number two guys. You know, it's going to help them with the wear and tear and help them guys last longer. They may not like it, but this guy to me is every bit as good as our number one and number two guys. I think this guy's as good as Montreal Johnson. ETN, to me, a lot of people hype him up because of the name. I actually think Montreal's the better running back of the two. ETN's probably got the higher upside in future. He's a little better in between the tackles, got a little more wiggle to him, kind of juke you out of your shoes type thing. But Montreal's just such a strong, powerful human being, just with his strides and everything. I mean, the guy's just a freak. He's going to be an NFL running back for sure. But Cam Carroll, to me, I don't know if he's got another year. He may have a COVID year. If he could come back next year, he would definitely be number one or two on this depth chart, or number two behind ETN for sure. But I think this is last year. If we get him for another one, that would be stoked for that because I think Trayon Webb's going to take another year before he's ready. He's definitely not going to see the field this year. Was undersized, looked very soft, wasn't real lean muscle in the spring game. But he's got a nice future, as well in front of him. But some more guys on here. I got Cam Carroll. Like I said, he's going to get some snaps. Spurlock, definitely not ready to play. He looked atrocious in the spring game. High upside guy. Staff was real high on him. I think they were actually thinking he was gonna contribute this year, but I've heard he's like fifth on the depth chart, sixth on the depth chart at linebacker. I mean, there's probably walk-ons that are doing just as well as he is, so he's really struggled. Not sure if it's a scheme or what it is, but definitely, I mean, he was a low 3-star guy anyways, an 8.6 ranked 3-star at a high school. So a couple years, probably junior, senior, he might be one of the better guys on this team, but right now he's far from starting. I think we just had room, to give him a scholarship, believe in his upside. So he's there, but not going to contribute next year. Makuza on the offensive line. Obviously, this guy's day one starter, NFL draft type guard. Probably our right guard. With George as our backup right guard, and then Goodwin at right tackle, Richie Leonard at left guard. Um, Egwakon probably our starting center. We saw what happened when he was out and didn't play starting center, the snaps in the spring game. I am terrified. They better be cross training the hell out of these guys and developing um, 2 or 3 centers that can efficiently snap the ball, because at this point, we cannot go into the season with one guy who can snap the ball effectively. I mean, that was embarrassing and humiliating on national TV to snap the ball that bad at the collegiate level that many times in a game. And one of the two of those was on the quarterback, but the rest of them were just straight up in the dirt or over their heads. We do that, that's going to cost us big time. But that's my full list of transfers besides Taraja Mitchell. He's a guy, he's going to start, but when I say start, he's going to rotate in and out with Nunnery. I think those two guys 50-50 split their snaps depending on what package we're in, what kind of offense we're playing, and what scheme, or play that the defense is calling on the field. So I think you'll see both those guys equally, probably Nunnery rushing the quarterback and Mitchell stopping the run. And then Nunnery in coverage more. Shamar James can do both. I think Shamar does take a big jump. He had a good freshman year. I know I said he struggled at times, but he did. I mean, we can't just say every guy was excellent. We were a 6-7 team. I mean, come on. We struggled. We had the worst defense in the SEC. That means everybody on defense struggled. But I do think Shamar James wasn't, obviously ready necessarily to be a day one starter. It was more out of necessity. I think this year he will be, he will be that leader on the defense and that vocal voice and make a big impact. I think he's going to have an all SEC type season. and he'll be ready for it this year. So that's all I got, guys. That's all my opinion, my take on the transfers and how I feel about the class that we had last year in the transfer portal and what these guys bring to Florida. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll bring you guys more content. Go Gators!